Greetings, and welcome back to the MCOC Encyclopedia. Today is day 6 and the final day of covering every champion in the game, and today we are looking at the skill class. This will most likely be the final video of the year, so a very quick thank you to everyone for an amazing year. Your support means so much to me, but more on this at the end. So let's dive in. As always, we'll be reviewing this list in columns, starting at 10-10, going to 10-1, 9-10, 9-1, and so on. This leads us to start then in 10-1 with OG Black Widow. Much like Doctor Strange, for a champion that used to be so dominant, she is now very outdated and a rather bad champion with pretty weak damage as well. In 9-3, we have Daredevil's Hell's Kitchen. His damage output at best is still pretty meh, and even getting there is quite annoying. Not a great champion. At 9-2, we have Black Panther Civil War and OG Daredevil. Black Panther Civil War has a very odd playstyle that involves getting hit to do any significant damage, and he's much more of a defender. OG Daredevil is just bad and doesn't really do enough to warrant a discussion. At 8-8, we can actually look at some decent champions with Kate Bishop, Kingpin, Mole Man, and Valkyrie. Kate Bishop has a stupid amount of damage via her cold snaps, and her caltrops can also do a lot of hidden damage behind the scenes as well. She does have a sort of mid to high skill floor, so you really want to know what you're doing before you try and take her anywhere particularly tough. Kingpin is a very tanky champion with his unique special 1 debuff, and if you're running willpower, he'll be regenerating the vast majority of the fight. He's also one of the better shruggers in the game, and with just 1 synergy, he can become arguably the best shrugger in the game, though synergies aren't included here. Mole Man has excellent damage with his guaranteed crits, big special 2s, and lots of bleeds. He also has some shrugging potential, though it isn't the most reliable because he can only do it in one of his phases. He can also unstoppable intercept a lot and block unblockable attacks with his monster mass. When people say, is Kingpin or Mole Man better, they are very, very close, and it just depends what you need. Finally in 8-8, we have Valkyrie. She has some very good damage, and her unique playstyle of just hitting into the block can allow her to bypass a lot of things. If you see her in Alliance War, there's a chance she's being used on hazard shifts nodes, where if you hit them you get debuffed, but her plan is just never to hit them. Just hit into the block, and you can completely ignore it. At 8-7, we have Falcon and Shang-Chi. Falcon has very good damage and can shut down a lot of things with his ability accuracy reduction lock-on, an excellent evade counter as well, as that gives him even more damage, but also for champions like Thing. Shang-Chi has amazing damage from his special 2 once you get his Wushu charges ramped up, and the utility from those strikes are also very good, including slow, unblockable, stun, and cleanse. At 8-6, we have Atuma and Night Thrasher. Atuma has some very solid damage output, and his unique utility to reverse ability accuracy reduction is very, very powerful. He's a ramp-up champion in each fight, but can do very well once he gets there. Night Thrasher has decent damage once you get him ramped up, but he does need to be awakened for this. Possible demotion to 7-5, I might have overestimated him slightly. At 8-4, we have Karnak. His damage is okay, but it really helps if you can punish their specials and heavies with your heavies to keep his vulnerabilities going. At 8-3, we have Winter Soldier, a relatively outdated champion that doesn't do a huge amount. His power drain is nice, but unreliable. He is much better with synergies, but again, they aren't included here. At 7-9, we have Nick Fury. In his second life, which does come from his signature ability, he has a lot of damage and permanent utility, as well as some of the biggest and most consistent bleeds in the game. A very, very powerful champion. Though even unawakened, he can still do some good things. The bleeds are still big, and the utility, while it isn't permanent, can be maintained with special 1 spam. At 7-7, we have Crossbones, Jabari Panther, Mantis, and Stealth Suit Spider-Man. Crossbones has some very good damage once you get him ramped, and can shut down a lot of things with those Fury buffs also reducing ability accuracy. If you have him awakened, you can shrug off debuffs as well for faster ramp up and more safety. Jabari Panther has some good bleed damage, and her cleanse is very reliable and very powerful. A little bit annoying to play, in my opinion, without synergies, but she certainly does the job well. Mantis has some very big special 2s, and her control over the opponent placing debuffs on you is very, very powerful. A bit of AI manipulation in there as well, and we have a great champion. Spider-Man's stealth suit has some very good damage and utility, which can be extended further with synergies. If you use him with his vulnerability pre-fight, so the damage one, he will out-damage Stark Enhanced Spider-Man. He was specifically designed to do so. If you use him with the utility ones, though, he will have less damage. I believe he needs Max Sig for this to be the case. At 7-6, we have Hawkeye, Hitmonkey, Massacre or Massacre, Ronin, and Thor Ragnarok. Hawkeye has some very good bleeds and raw damage, though his Sig really helps to amp this up. His power control is also very nice. Hitmonkey, again, has great bleeds and raw damage. His utility is a little bit light, but his constant and reliable crits set him apart a little from the rest. Massacre has some very, very high incinerate damage if you can keep it going, or you can play him differently and go for big special 2 into the block. A very, very powerful champion, showing his worth in Battlegrounds more and more. Ronin has some very high damage and some great bleeds once you get him going. He can also work well versus bleed immune champions. He may get moved at some point, but until I see more footage, he is staying where he is. At 7-5, we have OG Black Panther, Black Widow Deadly Origin, Misty Knight, and Squirrel Girl. Black Panther OG has some very, very good bleeds, even more so with synergies. The damage isn't half bad as well, and with his signature ability, he can shrug off, making him very recall friendly. Black Widow Deadly Origin has a potential promotion to 7-6 coming. Her shock damage really adds up, and her special 2 burst is very, very powerful. Her ability accuracy reduction, though, is what lets her down and isn't really worth talking about. Misty Knight has some surprisingly good damage with her unblockables and her guaranteed crits. The cold snaps just add on top of this, and is overall a relatively underrated champion. Squirrel Girl has some very powerful instant bleed damage, though despite this, a possible promotion to 6-5, as without her bleeds, she is a bit of a noodle. At 7-4, we have Gwenpool. Her bleed damage is okay, but her utility of using those bleeds to fuel her other abilities is nice. Possible demotion to 6-5 for her as well, because again, without bleeds, she really suffers. At 7-3, we have Elektra, Moon Knight, and OG Punisher. Elektra has some good crits, and against a low health pool opponent, she has very reliable guaranteed crits. Possible demotion to 7-2 though, as she doesn't really do much. Moon Knight is perhaps the most infuriating champion in the game, because his abilities change depending on the real world, depending on the moon itself, and with synergies also on the tides. I don't understand why this is a thing. Can you imagine, sorry boss, I can't join Alliance Quest at the moment. The moon isn't in the right phase for my Moon Knight. I can see the idea, but I don't think it works for a game like this. OG Punisher has some guns and they do some damage. Unfortunately, it isn't very much damage and the bleeds are only fine. I've seen some rank 5 Punisher gameplay and it's honestly very disappointing. At 6-8, we have Baron Zemo. Bleeds, lots of them, and permanent ones. That's what he does, it's what he does well, and when he stacks them up, they can really tick very, very hard, and his special 3 damage is also very, very high with those bleeds. At 6-7, we have Chi-Ilth, the newest champion on this list. She can stack up some good bleed damage, but without bleeds, really suffers, keeping my eye out to see where she might move in the future. At 6-6, we have Elsa Bloodstone, Killmonger, and Moondragon. Elsa has good shrugging utility, and the ability to turn those debuffs into precisions is very nice. Her damage is pretty good as well, but she doesn't do anything special enough for me to put her any higher. Killmonger stacks his bleeds, and with his special 3 Mega Bleed, he can deal a lot of damage. Just a real shame he can only do it once. There is a synergy that lets him do it twice, but even then, I can't push him much higher. Moondragon has very decent damage overall, and her ability to have permanently unblockable specials off her signature ability is also very nice. At 6-5, we have Craven. If he works, and they bleed. However, you are very reliant on the AI not to trigger your traps, and you want to make sure you do it properly. A slightly annoying champion to play, but can be good. At 6-4, we have Korg. The damage is lacking, so to speak, and his utility is fairly light. Possible demotion to 6-3, though I will say he is significantly better with synergies. At 6-2, we have Agent Venom. A relatively outdated champion, doesn't do a huge amount. He has some bleeds on his special 1 and Incinerate on his special 2. His shrug off is okay, but not wholly reliable. I will say though, with synergies, he is probably the champion that gets the biggest boost on this list, as if you can bleed them and incinerate them, he becomes a very powerful option. At 5-3, we have Taskmaster. He has a very high skill cap to him, but even then, the payoff just isn't quite good enough in a lot of situations to really risk going for his playstyle. He might get promoted up to somewhere over in the specialist ranks, because he can do good things in the right matchups, but I'll keep an eye out on him. At 4-8, we have Black Cat, a champion that requires a bit of skill, but in the right matchups, her bleeds go absolutely bonkers. Particularly in matchups where you can pause them by failing the opponent's abilities, she holds some of the record kills for Labyrinth bosses. At 2-10, we have Aegon. If you can ramp this guy up, he is absolutely disgusting, but he really needs that signature ability to hold on to his combo. Permanently unblockable, unstoppable, and with stupidly big furies, Aegon really is the king of long-form content. Finally, at 2-7, we have Blade. This man will most likely be moved to 1-8 though. His damage and overall utility is pretty good, but only when he is in his Danger Sense mode, which, without synergies, is a very small proportion of the overall champions in the contest. Without Danger Sense, he's still fine, looking at sort of a 5 or 6 tier, and his regen, regardless of matchup, is very, very powerful. So that's it. My thoughts on every skill and every single champion in the entire game. I know people may disagree with where I've placed champions, but I'm always open to a conversation about something I may have missed. Thank you to every single one of you watching though for the overwhelming support on these videos. It has been much more than I expected, so again, a big thank you for that. This will most likely be the last video of the year. I was really hoping to get 625, maybe 626, Shuri, whatever out, but right now I'm 5% burnt out from making all these videos back to back. But despite having remained pure for several years, I have just managed to catch COVID off someone off a plane, so I'm really not in the frame of mind to do that right now. I will see you all in the new year, and as always, thank you, and I will see you next time.